Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Lavigne Show. I don't know where to begin. This woman who we're about to bring on is a former Air Canada employee and a whistleblower, and I've just been fortunate enough to have a brief conversation with her, and I cannot wait to get her on the screen to share her experience with you all. One of her goals is to stand up and create more awareness for not only her cause, but to give others the courage to be able to stand up and be a whistleblower as well. And the fact that she is thinking of others to encourage others to do that just makes me like her even more. And I really can't wait to bring her on. So her name is Sue Croquette Sproule. And Sue, if I can see I've entertained her with that, she's laughing away. So Sue, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on now so you can share your experience and let's get your story told.
Hey,
Hello, hello.
everybody.
Thank you for joining us today, Sue. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paula. I'm honored to finally get some exposures for the group of women that I've been pushed in front of, not really by choice, but by necessity, because we came to conclusions that our unions were working with our employers to destroy our dignity, our career, and make us sign non-disclosure agreements to fade away in silence with just our pensions. And the only reason I'm in this situation after 14 years pretty soon is because I was the health and safety union rep in my Montreal Air Canada call center for over 22 years. We had three evacuations about the call center between August 2011 and the 8th of February 2012. And I was on shift each time. The one that hit the fan on the 8th of February 2012 is the one I was finishing my shift in 20 minutes when something went wrong. We had to evacuate the building. I helped the fire department. My manager came in, my director, because we didn't have an evacuation plan. And I started being harassed. My union and union reps, district chair, everybody involved, nobody put in anything for us. Some women took justice in their own hands using astucious tactics to record bad behavior of some of our management, and we managed to get rid of them. And some others did not know what we were dealing with. I've had a really good career. I had no problems with anybody my entire career. I've had some little disagreements with some colleagues and everything, but nothing special. My employment record was this thick. It was pretty full because I worked in a lot of places, Mirabel Airport. I started my career in 1985 with People Express. Then when they closed in 86, I was still in college, still wanted a part-time job in the airlines. A friend working in Nation Air told me, come and work. You can work on weekends. I was also playing basketball, college basketball. I wanted to finish my schooling, so it wasn't a serious career at the time. Then after that, I had other friends working in the counters right in front of Mirabel Airport for Canadian Airlines and others at Air Canada. I decided to go apply to them. Canadian Airlines hired me in the same week. I started what I thought was training. An interview ended up being my first day of work in the same week. And I was with the company Canadian Airlines from the 3rd March 1988, started contributing to my pension at that time. Still not thinking.
Let's just put a pause in that, because thank you for all of that. So a couple of things that you touched upon, not only the realizing that the unions aren't necessarily working with who they represent, but also you spoke about the women you were also standing up with. So we're going to get to that later on, but I just wanted to highlight, so there are many facets to the issues that you have had with Air Canada.
When they decided I was a target, and I'm going to phrase it that way because it's always something like that happens, because our unions protect drug dealers, wife beaters, alcoholics, even fraudsters. There's a guy that was able to be not only a union rep, a district chair, also bargaining committee for CAW and Unifor, that he was caught three times his hands in the cookie jar. So all these people get second chances and third chances and everything, and they all keep their jobs. So how was I to know that women that would bring up to the attention of the company and the union bad behavior, either of colleagues, unionized colleagues, or management, it was handled the exact same way. But I only found out about all these things really later on in my case, because it got me really sick. And you're really lonely when you're going through all these process and you're alone. And the union tells you also that you're in a unique, complex case. They isolate you. They ask you for total confidentiality so that it doesn't hurt your case and it doesn't expose your medical file. They really play you. It is a game. I have been told I was stupid not to play their game. I was stupid to trust them. I was stupid to be a person of good faith and honest and all that. And
By
I
by
still,
whom? By
my
whom? Who? Oh, a
union,
union.
some of my friends in higher positions. I'm lucky. I have a lot of friends in all classes of society, in high jobs and high positions. I'm still being fed information from the union. I'll give you, I'm going to try not to regress, but I found out that even the Jerry Diaz, when he got arrested for the co-op incident there in Winnipeg during the strike there, was all staged with the help of the RCMP. And there's people that are telling me this is a fact and everybody knows, and it's Sue, what you're talking about. You have no idea how the corruption of our union is. What
How
you're
it goes
talking
up.
about is like entry level state. Of course, they're going to get rid of all good employees that are bringing out the rotten apples of our system, union and company. And yes, you were manipulated. And I realize also that I was probably a DEI of my time, because I was a French Canadian woman from Quebec that they promoted through the union ranks because it made them look good. You understand?
Uh-huh.
I really thought I was part of something. And even my
Yeah.
employer, I've got so many commendations. And the events of that evacuation in February 2012, I got a record nomination for act of bravery and award of excellence from my own colleagues in my call center. But they removed me from the contest, if you want. It's a program that they have every year, because I was technically on sick leave, that I wasn't eligible to be their nominee and their
Oh,
finalists for that year in 2012. So I found that out later on. And it's all these little things that now make me even feel more validated and helps me heal. It's going to be a long journey, and it still hurts and it's still very hard. I find it very difficult to have to defend myself at this stage when all the proof and the legal documents all you exist. I have an external investigation dated from the 28th of July, 2012, that states, due to the preponderance of the evidence, Mrs. Susan Sproule was subject to workplace harassment, workplace conflict, and a poison work environment. It should have stopped right at that moment.
mm.
And instead, we're in the
2025.
January 2025. I am now considered an airline whistleblower advocate for women who are being sexually harassed, psychologically harassed. And now I'm joining other groups that I found through X, and shout out to Mr. Elon Musk. I don't agree with everything and anybody. I dislike to give my support to anything and everybody, because I find that everybody has something to bring to the table, but depending if your heart is in it or your wallet is in it, there's always different types of interest. And I am solely in for my heart. Of course, my wallet needs to get back what they stole from me. And that I've been without revenue since the 14th of September, 2015. I'm the
My
only
goodness.
workers' compensation person that is in waiting at the Canadian Human Rights in my group that is without revenue, because all the rest are covered by WCB. Us in Quebec, it's another program that's highly corrupted. And I have a favorable judgment that they should have taken me back to work in 2015 and 2017, and again after my arbitration, but they refused to put it in place. And I found out that those rulings, even after going through all these legal process, union, government, Harassment, workers' comp, everything is meant for you to fail. You're not going to make it. And in the end, your rulings are non-binding. And because you went through that legal process, that is a government, corporate, union, legal process, you are no longer allowed to sue anybody involved, and neither can sue your employer or abusers.
Mm.
I had a 6-month delay of prescriptions. That means deadline to go put in a criminal case against my 2 abusers, because that you only have 6 months after a criminal action has been done against you to go to the cops to put a complaint. But I was told to go back to my union because it was a work-related something. You understand? So
Yeah.
everybody shoves you out, and you're really weak. You're suffering. I was on 5 different types of medications.
Mhm.
They put me also through 10 psychiatric evaluations. So all these things opened up my eyes to other people and other people's story after the pandemic started, because I saw right away the abuse because of what was I already in. And when I saw Jerry Diaz on national TV tell everybody nationwide that is unionized and pay union dues, that if they don't want to take a body invasion, something that is still in stages of experiments and not been approved. Anyways, regardless of what it
Yeah.
was, no union should impose anything on any employer. Your job is to be the buffer zone in between the employer and the government and everybody to make sure your rights are respected. And
I'd agree, and that's what we believe the unions are there for. But now obviously, this is the end of your career. Let's start at the beginning. You said you started in 1989?
no, 3rd of March 1988 was my first day with
88.
Canadian Airlines. I was
Mhm.
mostly airport. Then we merged with Ward Air in 1990. And then because we were too many employees in Mirabel, they had to shuffle some of us around. My seniority brought me to Dorval working Canadian cargo. Then I finished my college degree, and I had 22 grand of student debt. They offered me a position in Iqaluit, Northwest Territories at the time. Now it's the
Mhm.
Nunavut in 93. I was up there until the base closure in 95. I was also the training agent up there. We did everything. I even had to get my radio license to talk to the pilots and from the traffic control and everything. We had to learn absolutely everything up there. We were 8 employees running the entire northern base. That's where I got most of my experience. And I came back in 95. I went to the Canadian Airlines call center. 2000, the merge with Air Canada, the political fiasco with Onex and everything. They wanted to dismantle the airline industry in Canada. Anyways, now Onex is Mr. Schwartz pretty much doing that with WestJet, but I don't want to go there. But it brought me
Mhm.
down so many rabbit holes that now what I could not understand and grasp before, why I was in the situation I was, because I couldn't understand. I'm guilty of nothing. Why are they destroying me? And it wasn't about me. It took me
Yes.
a long time.
Now,
That's
over the course of your career, starting from 88, and let's say even remove the last couple of years, were there any indications from your colleagues that there were issues with the union? There was issues like, what did you see as, I could say, the decades went on, because you've had quite the lengthy career?
um
What did you notice or experience or see others experience over that time, if anything?
I was also a delegate for the Quebec committee. As I told you, they used me as their old
Mhm.
DEI. They just rebrand things, and I was their visible minority, if you want, of the time. And so I was on the environmental committee. I was on some boards. I was on the biannual health and safety, human rights, environmental conferences we had in Port Elgin for CAW. I was even on the organizing committee, because again, all because I'm bilingual. So I was also the liaison officer for the Quebec delegation. I was also put on Great Lakes United representing CAW as a delegate for the Canadian unions. So it brought me a range of experience, and I didn't really notice anything other than certain events. More I went up the ladder, the expense accounts were really disrespectful of the members paying for all this. That I noticed, and I questioned that sometimes, and I was told to mind my business, that this was part of the thing, and that anyways it was cheaper to have a center like the CW Learning Center in Port Elgin than to pay hotels all the time for these events and everything. But I never did the math, but I took their word for it.
And this is within the industry as a whole, like you're seeing with every organization you ended up working with, this just seems to be the norm. It's not just this stood out at this particular business.
No, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. But still then, I really thought I was contributing to something. I thought it was just a way of compensating people for their hard work and giving up some of their time, because some of these things were done are voluntary. Some of the others were, I was taken out of my work, but the union paid my salary, even though I wasn't working my job to do and attend these conferences and do these things. And that's why I always, and also I'm working in a call center. I'm not supposed to think that anything dangerous can happen to any of us, other maybe some paper cuts and tripping over garbage pails and falling off their chairs. I'm saying these things really, I know it sounds funny, but that's the type of things that happen
But
in a
that is
call
health
center.
and
And I was the
safety. That
health
is
and
deeply
safety rep.
associated.
So, and all I had to do was make sure I was informing my bosses. And I was even doing their CNST WSCB similarity annual reports. I was even doing my manager's tasks because they didn't want to deal with them, and I was happy to do them. It was something that was easy for me. I even ended up writing our evacuation plan in the Montreal call center in May 2012, a month and a half before I left on my last day of work.
Wow.
So everything is really well hid. But once you start resisting their manipulation and they always ask of you to keep everything confidential. They always ask of you to stay silent, not even talk to your spouse, family, and friends for advice. I think they get training to manipulate us. I know it sounds crazy, but Benoit Lapointe, my district chair, bargaining committee, Eastern Canada representative, he's still on the Quebec Council currently. He has blood on his hands. He manipulated people to sign non-disclosures. And today, some of them have committed suicide. Some are so sick, they were fighting with the company, with the insurance in their last days of cancer treatment. When I started working in the airline industry, and even at the beginning of 2000, when we merged with Air Canada, I really thought I worked for an honorable corporation. I did not believe that they were perfect. I knew there was isolated incidents. I had seen people lose their jobs for doing some things, but I've also seen people that had committed pretty bad things and they got second chances and everything. So I thought it was like until I became a
It
target.
balances out. Well,
Yeah,
let me ask you this. Those who are able to retain their jobs and in some cases lose their jobs, was the union involved? So did the union go to bat for them?
of course they would. I'm telling you, they would go to bat, even to the point that the union would finance their rehab or their alcohol treatment or their anything. They would pay for their treatment. And
Okay.
my insurance was cut off in March 2016 when my employment was only terminated on the 28th of November 2018. It's illegal to cut off somebody's insurance. But I'm not the only person they did this to. They do so many heinous things, disrespectful. It's so cruel and inhumane. And something obviously changed within Air Canada. But when you start looking at what's happening across the country right now, everything is the same. But in 2012, it wasn't out there. But now they're screwing us over in our face. They're open corruption and nothing is happening. And the unions, wow, look, Jerry Diaz got caught with giving a paper bag 50K bribe to another union official so that they'd accept to do the promotion of the PCR test they probably had a deal with, and they all pocketed money by promoting and imposing these unlawful mandates. And that's where my brain started coming back, because I was still stuck in my misery. I don't know if it makes sense to you. But the people that have been through things like me, they totally understand. The only,
Mm.
and I find again, that I'm lucky, because most of the ones I talk to are not even capable of having the conversation we're having, you and I, and talking about what's been done to them, or they don't have the education or the knowledge to explain everything that's been through. All they know is that they've been mistreated, they're guilty of nothing, and they just can't understand why. And that's what
Mhm.
makes you sick.
Hmm. So then, Sue, tell me, your last day of work, or I should say, when this happened, like, what caused your situation where you needed to you spoke up about what, and then what subsequently happened?
Um, I had fell off the call center ladder putting up Christmas decorations 14th of December 2010. So I was also going for physiotherapy as of after I came back from my vacation in 2011, January 2011. So they put
Mhm.
me on a schedule, and I guess I was already a target at the time, and they took advantage of the fact that I was injured to put a lot of pressure on me. I found out they had paid somebody for almost 8 months to be shadow buddied onto my calls. I would hear
Mhm.
clicks on my calls, but I never bothered. I always did my job the same way. I'm pretty much the same person you're talking to right now that I was at work and with my colleagues in my daily life. I'm not a person that plays game. I'm known and respected, and I think that's what helped me throughout this. That I was able to remain authentic, honest, and keep my integrity, and I didn't have to lie to try to get sympathy or anything. But at the same time, I wasn't looking for sympathy or any pity or anything like that. I was doing At that time, I was just doing my job. And then the evacuation issues came in, where we didn't have by federal law, Part 3, we are legally obligated to have an evacuation plan in any workplace more than 50 people. This building we moved into, where the Air Canada call center was, in between 200 and 350 people from the time we moved in August 2009 till the time we moved out of there in 2013 to reoccupy a building and office space that belonged to Air Canada. This was the first time that they were leasing, but that building that
Mhm.
belonged to a large Quebec landlord of commercial spaces, Quebec was still subject to the same laws, regardless if he was provincial or federal. And the Quebec Labor Code and Labor Building Code also has a similar laws in place, that you have to have evacuation plans in large buildings, have multiple levels. This is nothing special. It's really
Mhm.
part of doing business, but it became a problem because of negligence, lack of interest, and duty to do the job they were paid for. They didn't take care of their job. They didn't expect to end up with 3 evacuations in a call center in a 6-month span. That's also out of the ordinary, and was also a unique something that happened. I don't know why all these things happen. Regardless, if they had just done their basic minimum duty diligence, I think what happened, it just something just flashed into my head. I also remember in 2011, during the Christmas holidays, we had a VP of Air Canada that had actually came during Christmas Eve to our parking lot with sand and salt and a shovel in his trunk. And I think that was the trigger where my bosses got in trouble, because they were not taking care of their duty. That morning this happened
Mhm.
Christmas Eve 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Um, 11 people had fell in the parking lot and in the walkway to get into our building to come into work in between 5:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. So it triggered something off, because now we were going to be, a lot of people were triggering off work for injuries even before entering the building. And
Right.
2 were really severe. One broke a leg, one broke a clavicle that she ended up with surgery. Oh yeah, it's true. And another one broke her elbow. So we're not talking about people who slipped, and I don't know how to put it. These were serious injuries.
Yes.
There's even one girl, I think she missed work almost 2 years from that day on. So it was an addition of things that ended up that my two main abusers, Bernard Melbert, senior supervisor in the Air Canada call center in Montreal, and the North America call center, Mario Di Rienzo. And I had okay relationships with these men prior to these events. Look, I don't like destroying people's reputations. I don't like dirtying people's names. But at the same time, a lot of people accepted to prostitute themselves and shut up or be silent or be complicit. And I don't know how to explain it anymore. And I didn't do anything special. I just did my job, my civic duty. And I ended up in a really bad situation because I wouldn't comply to their demands, that they say I was unreasonable, that they say that I was inappropriate, also unreasonable expectations. I lacked respect, loyalty, and civility. They wrote that in my termination letter while I was waiting for my arbitration in
Wow.
2017. So I can go on and on and on.
Well, let me ask, so what were you accused of not doing or even doing that was classed as inappropriate and not being a team player, I guess?
You know what? Nothing. Because my termination of the final arbitration, dated 28th of November 2018 by Mr. Federal Arbitrator Brian Keller, that thanked me for my honesty, um, 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 willing participation, and of answering all his questions and everything. He even put a hand on my shoulder, telling me he was sorry as he walked away. So my family and friends that were there that last day of my arbitration, 31st October 2018, really thought that this man was going to do the right thing. But even though he was honest in my arbitration, in the sense that he did write that my call center director that finally terminated me had testified in the morning of July 2018 that the decision to terminate my employment was all hers, and that she had read my WCB tribunal ruling. And yes, she terminated me anyway. And in the afternoon, when the union lawyer, Louis Gottheil, re-asked her the same question, but in a different way, she says, because he was asking her questions about my ruling, where it said about going back to work with favorable accommodations and everything. She admitted to them that she never read the ruling, that she had been instructed by Julien Paradis in the legal department, Mr. Zaffaroni, to terminate my employment. So, and this is the same woman I trained when she transferred from the Maritimes, when she got into Montreal. I forgot the year. And she went up the ladder, and then she ended up being the call center director, taking Mario Di Rienzo's jobs. And she even told me over the phone, begging me to come back to work, telling me that she would protect me and put me in the meta department and let me work out my last years so I can take my full pension and nobody would bother me. And she's the one then in my arbitration that admitted she terminating. So they all contributed. Doesn't matter. I have the lawyer, Mr. Pavlak, that's no longer there, and I thank him. He had the courtesy and kindness. When somebody's just being human with you, you start finding kindness in just normal human. He hid behind a pillar to shake my hand and to say, "I'm really sorry, Mrs. Sproule, and I wish you the best of luck." And not long after that, I found out he left Air Canada. So there is some really good people at Air Canada, but there's some people that have no morals left. They're lately with the whistleblower groups that brought me in. And before I forget, if you don't mind, I would like to mention a few of them because they're really
Please
helping me
go ahead.
understand my own case. There's Kirk Reese, David Drover, Luc Sabouret. There's our Mrs. Gruss in Ottawa, police officer that stood up
Oh,
for the babies. There's that, I
Detective Helen
forgot,
Druth.
I slipped out the other police RCMP officer in BC that stood up also. And there's also Patrick Provost. He's a Quebec professor that questioned things, and he lost his job, but a pedophile professor that came out of jail last year got his job back at the same Université Laval in Quebec. So that's quite ridiculous. And then I don't know, yes, I do know, about Gloriane Blais, and it's, to be
Yes.
honest, it's my cousin Manon that brought me to one of her hearings last 5th of February to 2024, telling me, because I was listening to things online and everything, but I was still very much sheltered in my own world and just helping other victims that had seen my stuff I'd put on Facebook and on X about Air Canada and Unifor. And I was just talking to other victims, sometimes guiding them through their union process and telling them what to expect and how the union was going to try to
Mhm.
manipulate them and oblige them to sign non-disclosures and then tell you you're going to go into mediation. No, it's confidential hearings when it's not true. They lied to us. They told me I had no human rights case in 2010. They told me, oops, I'm so sorry. I just closed that up. Friends are calling me. I didn't tell everybody that I was doing this. I tend to
No
send it
problem.
after. What was I saying? I'm so sorry. I lost.
You took going through your own process, they were telling you that you had no human rights. They were basically giving you incorrect information to let you know that
Exactly.
to
Thank
try
you.
and
I
intimidate.
appreciate your help. It's really, it's like I'm trying to tell a story that started in 2010 that kind of
Exactly.
terminated abruptly in late 2018, but is still ongoing because I decided to stand up. Stealing my pension there, I never thought they would go that far. I knew they were upset with me for posting an
Mhm.
internal union group in 2007, my termination letter. I know they were upset with me for calling the commission and telling, and also informing myself and finding out that my hearings were all public and they had um, no legal argument to force me not to have my family and friends attend my legal
You're here, yeah.
process. So all the things starting adding up, and then there was two wonderful ladies of Air Canada that I did not know, Billy and Kim. Every interview I mention them because Billy carried two human rights cases and she finally took a settlement with them because she was on the verge of losing her house. And that means being on the street, and her family, and she lost everything. She was destroyed
Mm,
like they did to me. Like I said, I'm lucky my husband didn't abandon me and I have a roof and I have food on my table. And that's
right.
why I feel like I need to continue doing this, because maybe it will be my niece the next time if I don't do this. And it's not because I'm anybody something special. I don't consider myself special in any way, other than I used to be a Girl Scout, and I worked for the airline industry all my life. And I've been with my husband 24 years. I am a loyal person. I've proved myself. I still have the same
Mhm.
insurance company I signed on with when I was 18 years old. And all my cars, I'm on my seventh car of the same Toyota brand. And I've bought all my cars from the same Toyota dealer, from the same Toyota vendor. The same person is still working there. So all these things they threw at me was to destabilize me, to get me sick, to silence me and everything. But it took me a very long time because
Yeah.
I never thought this possible. I had heard stories like these, but I thought they were the exception. And now I know they're not only not the exception, they're the norm. Just for to go back to my two friends, Kim got fired in
Mhm.
2013. I testified in her case. That's why also Air Canada is now retaliating really harshly against me and even putting millions maybe into my case so I don't even get decent what they've owed me, like minimum my pension, like
Yeah.
it's like you're refusing my bank account access when I have money in the bank. I called this our CMP department. I asked, they told me to get a lawyer. It was a civil case, but there's no lawyers willing to take us. Anyways, Kim is the one who reached out to me. She told me she did access to information. The first access to information came back as in 2015 saying that Air Canada had over 2,400 complaints, but it didn't say for what. So she redid another one and she got another one the following year, dated 31st of December 2016, that said there was 465 complaints for harassment only. And I say now everywhere on my post 467 because I put her and me in it, 465 plus 2. And her too, she had a hard time finding a lawyer. It's a pilot in BC that helped us. I don't want to
Mhm.
give out his name because I don't have his permission to, everything. When I tell people's names, and I tend to tell people stories. I got their permission to say their stories, but unless they've
That's
given
very
me their
considerate.
permission to give their names, because not everybody's at the same level. And actually, every single person that's put their name out there, even retirees, were retaliated against. They had their pensions suspended and had legal actions taken against them because they dared to speak out, even on social media. And it's so wrong. They've come and looked into my garbage. My neighbor has them on camera. The first time he saw it, he thought it was just random thing, but then it was like the same people coming out every month or something, and they're wearing gloves and they're going through every single paper in my garbage ad hoc. I had
Who?
come.
Who do you suspect this is?
It's Unifor of Air Canada, because look, Unifor is a criminal organization and Air Canada is just a normal corporate Goliath that knows that the power of lawyers and legal can buy them anything they want. I'm not saying everybody at Air Canada is a bad apple, but there's the bad
Mhm.
apples that are at the top are giving orders to people at the lower, and the people that are lower than them are morally bankrupt, accepting to be paid by like cheap prostitutes to do destruction of other human beings they know are guilty of nothing.
Right.
And just recently, I'm waiting because I'm waiting on the Canadian human rights. Finally, I've got a lawyer was able to help get my submission in, because I tried on my own. I had an RCMP retired friend that tried helping me to do the second step to
The
try to get it in.
paperwork,
It was
yeah.
refused. And then I was told I needed a lawyer to not attempt a third time, because then if I attempted again and got a denial, then I would have no more legal recourses. Then it took 2 years and calling maybe 50 lawyers and lawyer firms and talking to all kind of people that I'm connected through. Look, my mom's cousin was ex-minister under Bourassa in 1975, Justice Minister Jérôme Choquette, and he passed in 2017, same year as my mom, a couple of months apart. And the irony is that he was the person that set up our Quebec Human Rights Charter. And now I'm down the road here. And my mom's grandfather was the 6th Prime Minister of Quebec, my great grandfather, Honorable Alfred Mousseau. And he was part of the group of men under MacDonald that wanted to save all the patriots. They managed to save Louis-Joseph Papineau's life, but he personally tried to save Louis Riel's life and was unable. And it's just ironic that all this history passes and we still have the same problems. They're done in such ways. I'm happy that we have more free speech, that we have more outlets for people to expose.
For now.
Whistleblowers need help. Victims that are exposing corruption need help. And I think, because I've been informed recently by some people that have looked a little bit more into my paperwork, that my case could blow up Unifor, in the sense that it shows that I'm somebody that had absolutely nothing to eat. There's no reason for my termination. In the
Mhm. But look
arbitration,
at
it
the
says
lengths
that
that
the union
they
presented the
have
wrong
gone.
article of my collective agreement, and for that he terminates my job administratively. He did give me another little thing in the bottom. He wrote that he could not leave silence, that he was dealing with a long-term employee with an impeccable employment record. And for that, I'm going to award her a 1-year salary. So I got that 1-year salary in a 2-shot deal, because the arbitrator imposed them to give that to me. And I thought, wow, how come he's so kind to me? And now I found out that my arbitration that is in the CanLII database is now being used for all federally ruled unionized workplaces to impose on victims of harassment 1-year salary and been disposed of. I didn't even get my 4% severance, my vacation
Mm.
pay bank, my medical pay bank. I even had some time that I had a time bank. I would have, time in there. I got
Right.
nothing. I lost absolutely everything like I had committed. Look, there's a woman that committed fraud, that stole from Air Canada the bank settling plan in Winnipeg for over 5 years. She still got her pension.
Okay, so
The
what
guy
is
that committed was in, the guys that were involved in the gold heist in Toronto Pearson last year. They
oh,
still got
yes.
severance and their money they had put in their pension. So do
So
you
then why is it
understand?
different with you? What and why is is special about your particular case from 2010? You had said originally that when you had fallen off the ladder, unfortunately, in December, you said you were already on their radar. Why were you originally you think you were originally on their radar?
Because we were already having those issues of not having first aid trained
Mhm.
officers in our call center since 2019. I was, as being the health and safety, every 3 months we had a health and safety committee meeting. And every meeting I would bring up because that's how you build a case. So when if something happens, you can show negligence. That was my
Right.
job. I was trained by Ian Benny, CAW um, um, director of health and safety. I was also being trained and groomed to take over to become a union health and safety training officer. They were preparing me. Ian Benny had even got me a scholarship that the call center denied me, saying that I was essential to the operation, that they were not going to allow me that release to go take that course. And that would have helped me get out of the toxic workplace and maybe not have to go through the formal HR complaint. Because even though I knew there was issues with Bernard, Tony, and Mary on my call center, I thought my union and the people, my district chair, the men of my call center that I trusted were doing their job. I never thought that they were betraying us. And they
Mhm.
all make us sign non-disclosure agreements. And when they started trying to manipulate me to sign things, and I wasn't doing well mentally, I was on 5 different medications. I told them there was no way in hell I was going to sign anything under redress until I took the time to read everything and talk about it with my husband. And they
Mhm.
never let me leave with documents. And when I started insisting that they're looking like they're trying to railroad me, then they started looking, are you saying that we're not in good faith and everything? And then the alarm started going up, but I still didn't know that there was other women
Mhm.
like me in the system. I didn't know there was
Well,
Billy and Kim.
are there other and as much as I definitely appreciate the female perspective, were there also other men? Like, were there
Oh, yes. Thank
others?
you for bringing that up.
Mhm.
There's Joe and Denny. Denny from Quebec, Joe from Toronto. And Joe, I find his story really compelling because he almost used violence to take justice in his own hands. And when he
Mhm.
realized that he was about to take justice in his own hands because he was being harassed and abused, he used to work on the ramp in Toronto. He took an early retirement that really got penalized. His mental state was so damaged that it ruined his marriage. And he moved back to Quebec and he lives in a small apartment and his brother's basement, and he had to start over. And he's still suffering to this day. Once in a while, I take news, but he had the courage to come to Toronto and be there for Kim and testify in her case, even though he left because they couldn't take anything else away from him because he had
Mhm.
voluntary left. And but there's so very few people that have, and I'm not saying I don't work, I don't have colleagues that don't have moral ethics. I find they lack courage because they know what's going to happen to them if they dare, because they've seen so
Correct.
many. There's just in Montreal, they did it to at least 7 of us, and it was all 7 women that was respected, all of them.
Mhm.
So it sends a
I
message to the rest of them.
It does, and I'm seeing a huge comparison between you and Detective Helen Bruce. I don't wanna say woman, but a person with an extensive career in this industry, impeccable, rises up the ranks, is teaching, is the manager, it is getting things done for people below. And then something just shifts with regards to they're not playing ball. I mean, come on, they've gone this high. How can they not be on the same team as us? And when they realize that you're not playing ball, it's like every door, every window is being shut, and there's the stairs, go down them. It's very interesting to hear, and again, it's setting the example for others. There are many who are thinking, "Well, I don't have the same career as Sue. What are they gonna do to me if I stand up and I say something?" So, of course, there's gonna be
Exactly.
a lot of people, but all I can say is to you and others, thank you. Thank you for standing up not only for yourself, but then speaking out because we wouldn't know. And then many others would be going on and saying, "Oh, well, this airline or this industry must be a good company. They've been around for forever and, they have
And
X amount
winning
of
all these
employees."
glorious awards, best employer, best airline, and best everything. Every time
Yeah.
these things come around, I get knots in my stomach and I want to puke because I'm so disgusted because I know
Mhm.
it's all fake. Well, every year on the 8th of March, they have this thing where they put a highlight on a woman pilot or a woman in the Air Canada industry. I feel like they're just promoting prostitutes, and I'm so sorry I'm using that name because I don't want to. There's other words I would like to use, but it's the most polite I can do, and I'm really sorry. I don't want to offend, but
No,
you
don't be.
know,
There was a comment here, and I'm just gonna put it up. I'll just mention it. There was a comment here from Facebook, "Sell their souls for a few bucks." That came very early in your conversation,
you
and
know
it's like,
what?
yeah,
The
they're
girl, I'm
selling
going
their
to tell
soul.
you, the girl that accepted just last November that submitted this sick, I was only allowed to put in my complaint with maximum of 3 pages. How do you explain 13 years of abuse in 3 pages?
Right.
It's extremely difficult with a lot of help. And I'm grateful for the ones who are helping me and the lawyer that took my case, even though it's a small firm and it's going to be a long thing. And he's going to take a big chunk of my settlement apart from my pension. I decided to go ahead anyways because they're out of the 100 and we have 136,000 lawyers across this country, 28,000 in Quebec. And they all work for the government, the corporations, and the unions. There's barely
Mm,
any lawyer firms. And when they do take victims, they'll take cases where the money is fast and the case is fast and where they can do a plea deal and makes
right.
cases like mine, nobody wants to touch them. I had the chance of talking to ex-Justice Minister Marc Bellemare. I'm so grateful for him. He gave me 55 minutes of his precious time in his time while he already takes care of other cases, but he's more involved in immigration. He doesn't do harassment cases anymore. And every time around, it's the same thing. They attack your credibility. They destroy your mental health. By the way, they've put me through 10 psychiatric evaluations. I'd never felt so much humiliated and degraded and
Right.
dehumanized. And I was guilty of nothing. My abusers were never subject to anything. They were able to work an extra 6 or 8 months after the incidents had been proven, and they had the external investigation in their hands, and they left off with golden retirement packages, even had retirement parties while I was being crushed and punished and put through all these things made to destroy me, where I would not have any more health or strength left to defend myself. And then
Mhm.
by a little miracle, by being at Gloriane Blaise's appeal case, 5th of February 2024, I met Lux Media and Caroline Maillot and André Pitre. I read up on Gloriane Blaise's case. My cousin said it's unbelievable.
It is.
The Bar Association did the exact same thing to her, tried to impose psychiatric evaluations on her to try to discredit her reputation. I've actually been to other lawyers that I met through it. By putting myself out there, a lot of people came to me, and that's when I started building up new relationships with other whistleblowers and other victims. Not everybody's willing to come out and tell their story. They're too crushed, or
Mhm.
their family is uh, connected and whatever, and they don't want to. So I understand everybody. I have a lot of respect. I still love a lot of my friends that have made choices different than mine. I'm grateful they have not abandoned me as their friends, even though they disapprove of what I'm doing, because they
Right.
feel that I'm taking great risks that could. Anyways, I'm doing it anyways. I feel I need to do it because nobody's doing it. I feel our union, our government, my employer, Air Canada, has destroyed way too many lives. Everybody's afraid. Even people that are just sharing things political, on not politically correct, let's say, on social
Right.
media, are being brought in by our union and told to remove posts that have absolutely nothing to do with work or the union.
But
Everybody's being bullied.
but it's not politically correct in their eyes, and they don't want you to have a personal opinion.
Exactly. So they're being threatened. I have colleagues, I have friends that I'm friends with that we're no longer connected on social media because they don't want the company to know that we're friends, that we're talking, because some have been retaliated against because they knew we were friends and we were talking and we had a relationship for a long time. And, more information I find out because not everybody was comfortable telling me. And I even had a supervisor that left after that called me and she told me bluntly that she was asked by Mario Di Rienzo to find something in my employee file because she was my immediate supervisor at the time that they could suspend me on pending discharge to try to get rid of me. They used every trick in their book was used. And for whatever little miracle, I do have faith. I do believe in God. I don't believe in our institutions and the Vatican and all that there, but I do believe that the righteous do end up getting justice eventually, but it can take a very long time.
You need patience. Correct. You need
Um,
patience.
even at this point, the jurist representing me is disappointed. I went off all my medication and I did my own medical um, um, because I didn't have any more. I don't have a doctor anymore. The last time I saw my psychiatrist was like in 2019. I'm all on these strong medications. I always felt I was walking in a cloud and I was a zombie. And more I was reading on upon medication taken long term, the kinds of medication I was imposed to take in 2012, because I dared to tell them I was going through harassment. And through that doctor that was caring for me for that injury, I fell off the step ladder. When I came into his office crying, and he says, "You're hurting, you will need me to change your meds." And I told him about what was happening at work. He's the one who put me off work. And you know what he put in the case for the workers' comp? It's a French term. It's trouble d'adaptation. But if you translate it into English, it means trouble to adapt. And I thought it was an odd medical diagnosis for a workers' compensation. But now, in 2025, you know what? I do have trouble to adapt. I have trouble to adapt to corruption, to lies, and to abuse. And I will not accept to lie. I will not play the game they want me to play. And I'm extremely satisfied. And I am very humbled and grateful. And I have faith and I'm engaged. And I want to see this through, not just for me, but for every single person they've destroyed. It's cruel. I don't have words anymore to describe what they've done to me and to others. The thing with my case, because they do not have anything against me. How did I end up
Right.
in this situation? I still have a hard time understanding it. The
I guess
only
go on. Finish that thought. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the only conclusion I came to is because I didn't, like you said before with Officer Mrs. Gruss, she refused at a certain point to play the game, but she fell into something that she didn't know was a shaky water. She was just doing her job and her due diligence and her civic duty and the oath. And then she decided to continue being the person she was, and that's what I did. And they don't like people like us. They like people that comply. And when they have a hard time making us comply, then they start attacking our credibility, our mental health, and then our financial means. And that's why they thought they had gotten rid of me, because most people in my situation are either in psych wards, homeless, or sheltered by family members that had pity for them and are giving them a hand. but they're not finding the strength or the mental health needs they need to heal and to get better. And not everybody has it in them to be a fighter. I guess I was always a person that stood up for things, being from a Girl Scout background, from being the health and safety rep, from being the social committee
Well, I think
participant.
also you've been loyal to yourself. You've said how your entire life and career and even purchases have
Yes,
been loyal. You're
yes.
also loyal to yourself. You know your worth. You know that you have rights. And if even if others are trying to tell you that you don't even have human rights, you know better on that. So yes, you're loyal to yourself. And I think that's something that some people do lack. It could also be courage because some people would have backed down. Some people would have taken a settlement. Some people would have been quiet and just put their head down and get on with it. But you knew what was right and you weren't willing to compromise yourself for that. So, well done, Sue.
I have my mother to thank. Her name, Denise Sproule. She was an amazing woman. My mother, in certain, in the French Canadian, they had also arranged marriage, within families and
Mm.
different means. My grandparents had real estate and were in politics. My grandfather was in provincial politics, and her cousins and uncles and all that. And she was from a French Canadian educated family with a little bit of means of her time in the 50s and 60s. All her sisters married 18, 19, very young and had a lot of children. My mother married late in 27, and she fell in love with a farmer from Ontario who was Anglican, and his sister was a high priestess in the Orange Order. And my
Ah,
mom comes from the complete opposite. And so she married for love. I came a year and a half later after they married, then my brother, then my sister. But at 35, she was a widow with three English
mm,
speaking only children with English names. And she had to go back to Quebec in her family, and she had to start over. And she could have made different choices for her finances, but instead she decided to be a loving mother and gave the best of everything she could for us.
mm.
And I dedicate my journey to fairness and respect to this woman, Denise Mousseau-Chaquette, because I am very grateful for the person I am because of her. And I hope to make my family, my cousins proud. Not that it's needed, but because
Mhm.
it is embarrassing. If you had asked me to go naked in the middle of my street 14 years ago, or go through what I've been through, I would have chose, even though I'm pretty prude, I would have chose going naked in the front of my house. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I never thought about it because I just do what needs to be done when it's in front of you. And I guess they're not used to having people, like you said, that stand up for themselves. And now that I've connected and I have a network of other really amazing people, lawyers, engineers, government employees, military, police officers. We're all in a network group now talking to each other, sharing our experiences with the legal system, what they've noticed,
Mhm.
how appeals work, how judicial reviews work, the steps of our courts, following Gloriane Blais' case and helping her in English to explain to the rest of Canada that she's the only lawyer in Canada out of the 136,000
I
lawyers we have
know.
that stood up and is carrying out a class action suit. And there's a very important date. And I'm happy this is coming to my brain. I'm thanking God for helping me, or my mom. I don't know, my lucky charm or guardian angel, because talking in public, like, even if it's been a few times now I've been doing it, is extremely intimidating. English is not my first language. I know it doesn't show, but I would have preferred explaining all these things in French because most of my legal documents also are in French. But it's
Okay.
okay. I've managed, from the grace of God, to get through this. I appreciate people like you and your husband, and also like Payman Asghari and Sheldon Yakichuk and so many others that decided to do shows and blogs and have on real people with real stories to tell. I've also, through all the rabbit holes that my journey brought me to realize how corrupt our country is, how politics
Mm.
are absolutely horrible, how so many outside privately funded criminal organizations have influence on our country. And I don't know what to think anymore, but I think that a lot more Canadians, ordinary citizens, taxpayers like me, need to find it in their heart and in their souls that we have to come together, and it's only getting worse. The agenda is a World Economic Forum agenda. I don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes if you're afraid of talking about the things that are influencing everything that's going on right now,
Mhm.
we're being cowards. And I don't want to just concentrate on my case, because then I'm just doing this for myself, when I find it's a big picture that's playing
Exactly. That
out.
it's everywhere. It's in everything. I
Everything.
completely agree.
And our
You and
court
I will
just
wear tinfoil hats together. Don't worry about that. We will be
look. I
conspiracy theorists
I found
together.
out that the insulting people by calling them conspiracy theorists is something that was coined by the CIA in the 60s after the
Mhm.
JFK murder. So more I learn, more I realize that I was always different, but different in the sole respect that we didn't watch a lot of TV and listen to radio and music. I was into sports and into education. I even worked for my college library. I liked books and stuff. So maybe I was less brainwashed than some other people. I had a mother that was really concerned with our health and what we were putting in our mouths and food. She was ahead of her time. We had jars on the counter with alfalfa and radish sprouts and stuff like that. So she was a nurse. She was a licensed nurse. She worked with the Indians, the natives, the Grey Nuns in Montreal. So she had a lot of knowledge. And when I was 14, she told me that we were all experiments of the government. I thought my mom was crazy. And now I realize she was
Not
ahead of
at
her time. She was an
all.
intelligent, bright woman. She knew what was going on. She just had no power and no financial means to make any difference. And I am willing to continue my sacrifice. I am really grateful that my husband is providing for me. But to carry through the legal cases we're all carrying through, we need help from people. We need some lawyers to get the courage to go against their professional orders. Um,
Mhm.
when I started talking about some of my higher ups in the social class ladder of society with bigger jobs and a lot more to lose in the last 10 years, they all told me, I can't afford losing my house, my cottage, my marriage, my everything just to do this. And in the end, I will get absolutely nothing and I'll gain nothing. I'll advance absolutely nothing. And I told him, so you've known all along that you're in a system where you're just working up the ladder for a higher. He says, yes, I decided to put some of my moral convictions at the door. I do my best. I'm not an
Ooh,
abuser. You've known me. We're friends. I'm just relating conversations I've had with
yeah.
friends that are higher up. And I tell him, I find it disappointing that there's a lot of people that know what's going on and continue being complicit, like this girl Vanessa that I know, that's put her signature on 63 pages of rebuttal to my 3 pages of original human rights complaint of lies. 63 pages of lies. So there's a possibility the Canadian Human Rights Commission does not put forward to the tribunal my complaint, because they'll take into consideration as facts and truth those 63 pages of lies,
Right.
that I was only allowed to submit 3
Yeah.
pages of
You
abuse.
you you did 3 pages, and then you've
And
got
they were
going
allowed 63. I got help to do another answer of 16 pages to those 63 pages.
Mhm.
And they've been sent to the commission since mid-November 2024. And I should get a response anytime now. But the powers will be don't want me to be heard and get justice because it opens a can of worm, a Pandora box for all the other victims of sexual harassment and psychological harassment. Look, there's another big case, Bonnie Robichaud. She was a government employee. She's retired in her 70s today with her husband in a old age home. It took her 20 years to take the government. She had been sexually harassed by a fellow government employee, colleague that became her boss. She was a subordinate, and he was sexually harassing her because they had had a past relationship early on in her career. And it took her 20 years to get justice for that. And I didn't know these stories existed. I did not know that there was tons of Gloriane Blais, of Luc Sabourin, of Kirk Reese, of David Drover, of Officer Gruss. There's tons more. It's just that now I'm trying to put all the names because I try to follow a lot of these stories because it helped me understand the legal process I'm in as well. And then it gets also, I get to know some of the judges and lawyers involved. And it just shows us every day more and more how corrupt everything is. And it's,
Well, we're about to head over to our supporter section, but before we end in the public, give us some silver linings. What has been some of the positives that has come out of your experience?
talking to others, reaching out with others, exchanging our stories gave me knowledge, is helping me heal. I'm not a person that forgives easily. I should be angry. I should be outraged, and I'd have every right to be screaming and being really vulgar and using bad language to describe everything, and it would be very justifiable. I've decided to continue in the way my mom raised me, with tolerance, respect. I've always told them that I was willing to help and participate and collaborate to resolve this. In arbitration, I told them that if we could not resolve these issues, that I would be going to the Canadian Human Rights and to the Supreme Court of Canada if I had to. I didn't know at the time that our justice system was compromised and I was being laughed at. But it helped me see things that I would never have seen if I hadn't lived it. It's helping me heal. And I'm truly saying this. I told this to my cousins recently and some friends. I'm not angry at Mario and Bernard anymore. Anyways, Bernard passed away. It was never about money because I could have taken my external investigation, taken them both to small claim courts just with that document. And I could have suckered out of each of them $30,000. I think it's the maximum of the small claims. But my intent, I proved myself already, was never about money. I wanted an apology and I wanted to go back to work. So more I continue this journey to for fairness and respect for myself, the more they're looking, Unifor and Air Canada, in a very bad light. Maybe somebody at Air Canada will have a change of heart because I'm not angry at anybody. I want things to change. I told them that. They're the ones who decided that this is their way of doing business. And for anyone out there, I'm telling you, you're not alone. Stay strong. Try to get your health back on track. I'm no doctor. I don't want to encourage anybody to go off their medication. I know everybody's at a different level of everything, but you do have to look into your health, physical health, and our diet is a big, big part of it. And I had to help in some areas. One of them, as example, was getting off sugar. I know it sounds really silly, but there's a bunch of things that we need that when you look at holistic healing as an entire thing to try to move forward and heal from the trauma that you've been put through, you have to look at every aspects of your life. And I'm really grateful to have met many naturopaths and all kind of people that have been put on my journey to help me get through this, because I also have a lesion of carcinoma basal cellulaire here, right here. that
Okay.
I neglected to take care of because I didn't have a doctor and I was put on a waiting list for so long. And I've decided not to do chemo even for that because I have zero trust in our health
Mm,
system also. But I'm doing alternative treatments that are accepted elsewhere in the world, just not here, because I do realize also that our health department is completely compromised as well. So of course, if they're
that's
banning
another
certain
yeah, that's another
treatments.
conversation right there.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like I said,
yeah.
everything brought me all over the place. I have ADD. You probably noticed it from me going from all over the place. But it's all these things together that showed me the big puzzle, the big picture, and it helped me
Mhm,
evolve. I'm really trying to heal. I wish everybody could have the right tools and given the right conditions to heal. But if you're struggling just to put a roof over your head and put food in your mouth every day because you've been abandoned
mhm.
by the system, by your union, by your employer, just because you stood up for yourself, it makes everything even more hard. And that's why sometimes you have victims and whistleblowers coming out in interviews and into public spaces or doing posts and stuff that come out really, in a bad light because they're in a bad place and nobody's listening to them. And then
Mm.
the system will take advantage that they're in a bad place to make them even look worse. So I'm just trying to give credibility and a voice to all of us that have been destroyed. And I really, really, really want to see people stepping up to the plate. There's all kinds of government programs and groups across the country that are supposed to be safeguards and
Mhm.
guard dogs for all these things. Just an example, there's Le Protecteur du Citoyen Québec. It's like an ombudsman that you go to when you have issues with the government system and
Right.
whatever. He's blocked me on all social media,
My
including the
goodness.
WCB equivalent CNSST, because I was asking them, how can you be an outfit that says you're for justice when you abandon the victims, even with judgments and all this, that? So I never used any derogatory language or words or anything. I'm just saying, why are we abandoned? Why are so many? And I'm putting facts on their social media. So I get banned. I'm banned from so many medias and journalists, and Unifor almost banned me from across the board. And another thing I'm grateful, I just remembered, Unifor. You know why there's no medias talking about the real things happening in Canada?
Go
Do you
ahead
know that
now.
Unifor is the Canadian Press Industry Union? Do you know that Jerry Diaz and Leslie Diaz are paid by our Liberal government a 600 million fund of our tax dollars to distribute to all the medias in Canada
Mm.
to control the government Pravda narrative? So that's why there is no stories like mine and like
Right.
others coming out,
Exactly.
because everything is hidden by the government and the union that controls the Canadian press industry that sold their souls for a high paycheck. So more prostitutes on the government payroll.
Yes,
Sorry, I
and
mean,
when
that
it
was
comes to
not.
it's okay, but when it comes to independent media, yeah, there's no funding there. There's no
No,
funding
you
there, and
get
if
no
anything, we
funding.
have fear of censorship. We have fear of censorship, so it's quite unfortunate the situation we're in, and I'm all for, hashtag defund the CBC
Oh, so am
and
I.
many and many others as well, and
I'm
it's
grateful to people like you, like other bloggers and everything that are trying to get all these stories out of the
mhm,
whistleblowers, because a lot of people were afraid to touch our stories and give us a voice because they were afraid of being censored or legal actions and stuff against it. So I'm really grateful, and I do try to be very careful also what I say so that you don't end every time I'm given the trust and a voice to speak out about my story, that I don't put you guys look in a bad light either, because that's the first thing they're going to attack your credibility. You had Sue Sproule on that went on off this and this and this, and they'll find a way to. And even coming out, I've been warned that they're watching me very closely, and the legal department is looking at every single interview I've been doing, and they are
yeah.
trying to take pieces of what I'm saying and try and looking for ways that they will be able to crush me in some way. And I mean, imagine if I had gotten 10% of everything they've spent to destroy me, I'd be rich
My
today.
goodness.
They offered me 3
Nice
years
of them.
salary and my full pension and benefits if I would sign a non-disclosure agreement. And it was Benoit Lapointe, Leslie Diaz, and Louis Gottheil that were trying to pressure me and manipulate me to do this. These same people that were supposed to protect me and stand up for me.
Yeah. It's it's unfortunate, but Sue, thank you very much for standing up and speaking out and sharing wherever you can. We're going to go head over to our supporters area, so we're just going to say goodbye to the public.
I'll stay there and
So
I'm staying there.
you stay here. I'm
Thank
going
you
to
very
bring you
much
back
to
on
you
in about a
guys. And
minute.
you and your husband there, I watch once in a while. I just want to say thank you. Yeah, you really putting in a lot of heart and effort. And like Gloriane said, vous êtes vraiment
Yes, Gloria.
génial.
What is that on français, en anglais?
Go on, do a Google, génial, Genial, because
Mhm.
it really describes what you and your husband are doing and many others. It means what it means. Génial.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. So you stay here and I'll pop you back on the screen in about a minute. But
Thank
otherwise,
you.
everyone, I hope you have a fantastic night. And Jason will be back tomorrow and we'll see you then. Take care and God bless and supporters. We'll see you in a moment.